everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Sharon and this is a channel that is dedicated to all things related to narcissism. I make videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so please take a moment to subscribe so you don't miss any. At the end of the video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to comment. In today's video, I'm going to once again welcome someone very special to me. Joe is returning to the channel today to have a conversation with me about the stages of recovery. Very likely this will be a two-part video. So Joe, welcome back. And are you okay with doing a part 2 next week?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to be back, and I can't look. I'm looking forward to whatever I can do to contribute to the channel.
All right, that's awesome. Thank you. So just for those of you that don't know, like myself, Joe has been married to a narcissist for just about 20 years, and he also has 2 children as well. So we really share that in common, and we have narrowed it down. Of course, there could be many more, but Joe and I were talking, and we kind of were thinking we would discuss 4 stages of recovery, 4 of the stages of recovery from narcissistic abuse. And so we have learning, acceptance, no contact, and moving forward. So Joe, should we go ahead and get into it with the learning stage?
Yeah, we could delve into it a little bit. And, I don't know what it was like for you, Sharon. Well, I do, but we could talk a little bit about it. It was, for me, my ex has been gone for close to a year and a half now. I'm a single parent. But I started researching these symptoms that my ex had exhibited the whole time that I was married to her. Things like triangulation and gaslighting, manipulation, silent treatment. Now, it wasn't necessarily like triangulation and gaslighting. Those were terms I learned later, but basically just researching am I dealing with somebody that's bipolar or manic depressive or what? Because it was undeniable towards the end that this was not normal, and thousands and thousands of hours, but it didn't take long to connect the dots. And when I did, it was an awakening. It was like, holy crap. It was right on the nose. It was right to the T. Was it like that for you? Did you find the stuff on the internet or YouTube like I did?
Yeah, I just want to ask you a question before I get into that. So you mentioned that it was like this at the end. Can you just tell us a little bit, just a little brief synopsis of your marriage? Like, what was she always like this, but you were ignoring things? Were there red flags evident that you chose not to see, or did something change towards the end of the relationship? Like what caused you to start looking these things up?
I think I was ready, Sharon. There was later stages of my recovery where I had to look at, in my experience, I did ignore red flags. I came from a broken family. My brother and I, my father left when I was just turned 12. My younger brother and I were with an alcoholic mother that was a narcissist that unfortunately later on took her own life. But I had these values. When I met my ex, I was in recovery. I'm a recovered alcoholic and drug addict. And I met her in recovery. She was sober at the time. She didn't stay sober. But, we were pregnant right away. And this value that I had of, I didn't want my son to come from a broken family, and her relapses, cheating, lying, manipulation, it was all there. I was just, narcissists are delusional. And this empath, I'm speaking for me, was just in denial. A lot of things were there, but that value of that family that I didn't want my sons to go through, it superseded the logical thought process of, hey, listen, that's great, love the idea, but you're dealing with somebody that's just not going to go along with these values that you have. So it was after I was basically, for the umpteenth time, cheated on, lied to, money stripped from my bank account, my cars taken, that my kids were older at the time. Now, when they were 4 and 1, I had custody of them. I dropped the custody case to bring my wife back into the picture at the time, which was a mistake, obviously. But they were older now. Luke is 20, John's 16, and towards the end, it was just undeniable. Like, I had discarded her. I had no choice. It was life or death at that point. And I started researching about 3 years ago, though. I was ready. If that makes sense to you or not, I was ready to start to grow.
Oh yeah, that makes total sense. That's very similar to me, because when in retrospect, I can look back on my relationship and it's very obvious that I was ignoring red flags. At the time, I knew I was, but then I didn't, because what happened with me was you had that ideal of you wanted to have like the family. I did too. The difference really was that I wasn't pregnant, but I wanted to be. I wanted to have kids, and I met this guy, and I thought this would be great. We'll have this little family. That's what I wanted. So when things started happening, because if I'm honest with myself, this was way back. We were dating, and he was giving me silent treatments, but I kept thinking, well, it'll get better, or it's probably not that bad, or he was stressed out. But there came a point later in the relationship towards the end when, like you, I was ready. And then, that's not a good place to be when you discover everything, because I started, go ahead.
No, I could just, when you said that, I could feel it. We're so close to it still. It's good that we don't forget, but you were saying you were ready. What happened, like, when you started looking it up and stuff like that? Did you get that awakening, like, holy crap?
I was shocked, because I didn't know what narcissism was. I had no idea. I would have thought that it was just a vain person, or a mythological figure. Like that's what I thought it was. So I started looking up silent treatment because my ex was huge on that. And that just led to other things. And all of a sudden I was learning all these terms, triangulation, stonewalling or silent treatment. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. What are some of the other ones? I'm blanking.
Triangulation, gaslighting.
Gaslighting, yes. Thank you.
Give and take, breadcrumbing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was them all day. Like this was like, oh my God, like they got a name for this.
Yeah. Yes. When I discovered there were names for all these things that were happening in my relationship, I couldn't believe it. Like I could not believe it. I thought this was just him, how he was. I didn't know. I had no clue that there was this disorder and that other people are experiencing and that are experiencing it also. And it's real. It's a real thing. These people or these things, like, as you call them, they're severely disordered. They do. Yeah, go ahead.
It wasn't just that, but, I was quietly going insane myself, there was a long period of time during the relationship where I was asking myself, is there something wrong with me? Like, it is so jacked. Like, your reality is turned upside down where you're thinking, man, is it me? Like, do I need to see a psychiatrist or psychologist?
Yes.
Am I looking at things? But when I found that out, it was like a relief. It was connecting the dots like, okay, I might be a little nutty, but I'm not insane. Like what I see and what I've experienced, other people have too. And then I knew, which was even more important, I wasn't alone. That's a good feeling. I felt like I was alone, that nobody understood what the hell I was going through.
Oh my gosh. Yes, exactly. That's actually why I started this YouTube channel, because I knew what it felt like to be alone, to feel alone, because I've known other people who have had breakups or divorces, but not like this. When you are in a relationship with a narcissist, you lose yourself completely. You live in hell. And, I guess this is what the video is about. There's a process to getting back to yourself, or even being better than you ever were before. But it's horrible being in a relationship with somebody like this.
Well, the trauma bond, and then I learned, because I'm a recovered addict and alcoholic, like there's an addiction. Like to me, it was like literally the chemical addictions of a high, like heroin, the dopamine, the serotonin, the give and take, the push and pull, like the withdrawal. Even as far as later on in the stage, complete abstinence, which is, we call it no contact when we deal with these things. I call them. But, honey, it was an awakening. The dots were connecting. that's when, like, I let people know a lot of times, they're like, well, how do I know where I'm at in my recovery? If you're researching NPD, you are on the road.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. That's the beginning, you know. Of course, then the next stage that comes is acceptance.
Oh my gosh, Sharon. And the acceptance is even harder than the knowledge. Like, we
Yes.
studied this thing for, it was fascinating. I never got into psychology like I did here. Thousands of hours. Like, we know more than psychiatrists do about the cluster B personality disorder.
Oh my gosh, yes.
But now it comes even like, I get this momentum. I'm like, okay, cool. I kind of got an idea. I'm not nuts. And if I am, I'm not alone. And there's definitely something wrong with my significant other. But then it's accepting this. When I was younger, I used to watch shows like on crime. If they would like interview Jeffrey Dahmer and like serial killers and psychopaths. And that's all I knew about cluster B. You know, my wife wasn't a serial killer or anything like that. But I think when I started researching the DSM, like the symptoms, the biggest one that caught my eye was they lack empathy.
Oh, yeah.
Now, cold empathy or cognitive empathy, they learn. It's a mimic behavior. It's learned behavior of, okay, so this is how you act during Christmas time or somebody's birthday, or this is how you act when you want to be appreciative, but not true empathy. And empathy is a cornerstone of love. So it took me a long time to accept that, holy crap, she never loved me. And I had to look at it. It was true. Her actions, your actions determine who you are as a person. And the words were there, but to not have empathy, oh my God, like that like really had me for a while.
Oh, it's horrible. That is a nightmare. You know, you are married to somebody and you don't, of course this person loves me. Like, of course, you don't think that they don't. And then to discover, and it's not like, okay, this person fell out of love with me or, things happened. They never did. And it's not just us, it's the kids too.
Oh my gosh. It's, like you talked about the con, like for me, the biggest con of all time the narcissist pulled off was that we need them. They don't need us. And they need supply like they need air. And they're constantly in survival mode. So I was con from the beginning. They know themselves, and they've done this their whole lives. If they didn't know what they were doing, they wouldn't lie and they wouldn't try to cover up their tracks. They are sane, legally at least. But yeah, to understand, like, holy crap, when she met me, it was just a ploy to get energy and be used as an emotional punching bag because they live in hell every day. So a little bit of relief and dumping it out on somebody else gives them, some breathing room. But man, grasping that concept that she didn't love my kids, oh my God. I don't know. How do you call that a human being? That's why I call them things or interspecies predators. Like the classic characteristic of a human being is love, is empathy. Where are you if you don't have that?
Yeah, you are so right. If you do not if you don't have the ability to love, if you have no empathy, I mean, and like even to your children, yes, it's like when you call them things, there's not a better term that I can think of. There's nothing that you can do at that point. It's scary. It's very frightening. I've thought to myself, I was actually laying in bed next to this person or this thing, they're capable of anything.
Like as I healed, I was so disgusted with myself. But towards like the end, when it was still fresh, you're dealing with the trauma bond, addiction, like cognitive dissonance, where I would remember the love bombing phase. Like she had an affair 7 years ago, and it devastated me. Like my ego, my everything was just horrible. And a couple weeks later, she come back at Hoover, of course. And I remember the love bombing phase. The devalue and discard, it wasn't in the picture. It was just, but she used to be this way. And that was about 5% of the relationship if I look back over the last 20 years.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, me too. When at the beginning of my relationship, when he was actively conning me, because this happens, right? Because they need to hook you in, they know, like it's like when you were talking about the learned empathy, they learn to mimic love too, so they'll act a certain way. Oh, she wants me to do this, or this is what she likes. And a lot of times they just imitate you, like
Yeah.
you're dating yourself, really. I mean, this is what they do, and they con you. After that, it goes away like permanently. It'll
Well,
be little blips of it here and there. Is that the same with you?
yeah, honey. So what happens, I believe, is that they have this mask. They're very lazy, and it takes
Yes.
a lot of energy to pretend and to play this actor or actress. It takes a lot, and once they know that they got you, and they test you in certain ways, then they could suddenly, drop the mask and become who they were the whole time. Like you see who they truly are. I lived with it for 20 years and only saw the fake part, the idealization phase, for about maybe 10 months out of the 20 years. And it was off and on. She'd breadcrumb me every once in a while where I would take away the supply. She'd throw me a little breadcrumb.
Yes.
Then it was back to the love bombing.
Yes, it's you realize at some point, and this is part of the acceptance. You were playing a game with somebody. Like, you didn't know this, but you are always in a game 100% of the time. They're acting. They're master manipulators. They really are. This is why, people often say when you're in a relationship with a narcissist that they're very different outside the house. Yes, because
Yep.
inside the house, they've already got you. It's all good. They don't have to pretend to be anybody else. They can be a complete jerk. My ex, one time, and this is humiliating and embarrassing for me to admit, he gave me a silent treatment for 7 months. When I have told people now, like it disgusts me. I was deep in the trauma bond when it happened, but it makes me sick now, like physically ill.
Don't feel so bad, Sharon. Like, we were talking before, you guys. How do I talk to my regular friends that know nothing about narcissistic personality disorder that my ex cheated on me 3 times and I took her back? They look at me like I'm freaking nuts. It's funny because why we hit it off so well, Sharon, other than our profile, like single parents, 2 kids, ex gone for a year and a half, the same stage in recovery, is that I get that. Like, even though 7 months when you told me that, I was like, holy crap, it lasted. Well, people asked me before, well, how often, like my close friends, do you guys get intimate? And I was like, I think the last time I had sex with my wife was like a year and a half, 2 years ago. That doesn't sound like a really good, healthy relationship, a loving relationship. Not that sex was ever a priority for me, but it's embarrassing, ain't it? Like, it's humiliating.
Yeah, yes, and in retrospect, yes, when you get like Joe and I have gone through the recovery, right? This is why we're able to be in a relationship right now, and this can be another video, but we have gotten to a certain point in the recovery where we're good. We're good. We're at the point where we can look back and see things, and it's horrifying to look back and see things. It really is, because suddenly you're because you were a different person then. Now here you are awake and you see things, and it's horror. I mean, is it just me? Is it horrifying?
No, it's horrible. Now, so we went from studying and becoming experts in NPD and understanding the problem, accepting the fact that we were in a relationship with this thing. Then it's another part of the problem that we have to look at, Sharon, that I did. So she's gone for a year and a half. I got my kids, my car stolen. I can't call the cops because we're still married. So technically she didn't steal the car. The pets, my mother-in-law living with me. And every day is just, I am bitching at God. I want her to die, literally, like slowly, It's just like, oh my God. But something inside me asked, okay, so Joe, if she's the problem and she's no longer in your life, then why the hell do you feel this way? Now, at first I got defensive and it was like, well, because she stole $30,000 of my savings in my car and left me freaking destitute. I have a right to be angry. Yes, I do. But then the next question was, well, do you think that you had a part to play in it? See, it's a 2-pronged problem here. It's not only the narcissist, but it was, okay, Joe, well, how old were you when you met her? You're 25. So you weren't a little 5-year-old baby that was getting beaten and abused, like where you couldn't defend yourself. You're saying that you were 25 years old and you chose to be in this relationship with somebody that abused you. And then it's dramatic, yeah, but, well, the saying anything after but is bullshit. And thank God I got honest with myself enough to say, okay, I did have a part to play. I didn't take anything away from what she did to me. I don't know any other human being on this planet what she did to me. I don't know any friends of mine or anybody that experienced that kind of crap. So it wasn't taking away from her what she did and how evil she is. It was, okay, I can't change her. From the knowledge that I gathered and the acceptance, she is unchangeable. And that's between her and her creator. But from everything that I know, she's pretty much doomed. Now, my whole life, and Sharon, we talked about this, like, as I peeled the layers of onions back, and I was in my recovery, I found out that my mother, that was an alcoholic, was a narcissist. The relationships I had in the past were with narcissists. What the hell is it in me that's attracting these people? How do I avoid this in the future? And that's when I had to look inward. You know, we could talk a little bit about that, but how did it come to you when you were like, did you get to a point where you're like, you know, I had a part to play in this? Not that you're justifying the abuse, just only looking at your side of the street, nothing else.
Well, yes. And actually, it was because of you and your shadow work. So I've never considered myself to be a victim. I don't want to be a victim. I don't want to be in that helpless stage, you know, because if you're a victim, you don't have any control over your own life. And sometimes people are really victims. And certainly, like Joe just said, like, this doesn't take away from what the narcissist has done. My ex was horrifically abusive to me. He was physically abusive to me. He was emotionally abusive to me. He was financially abusive to me. And, you know, he really, really leveled me. But at the same time, I cannot sit here and tell you that there were no red flags, or I was completely conned and I just had no idea. I thought he was this amazing person. I didn't. I wanted him to be this amazing person. But it wasn't until I was talking to Joe one night and he started doing the shadow work. You know, he's kind of poking at me a little bit, not in a mean way, but he was trying to help me. Like, you know, because he point blank said, so, you know, you're not a victim. And, you know, I was like, well, yes, I am. You know, like, I was kind of trying to, well, he did this or he did that, or, you know, but we got to the point where I was able, and this was incredibly helpful to me. I can see the role I played. Not that I deserved this or anybody deserves this happening to them, because you don't. It's horrible. But if I had been smarter in my relationship, this wouldn't have happened. Before we were married, he broke my nose. I mean, do you know, like this? He did this. Why would I stay with somebody like this? Why did I marry him? I didn't have kids. I was single. I mean, I wasn't single, I was in a relationship, but still, it would have been so much easier to get out of the relationship. I stayed. Why the heck did I do that? Why did I let somebody give me a silent treatment for 7 months? Why did I let somebody charge up all these credit cards and then trust him again that he wasn't going to do it? These were questions I had to ask myself, because I was an idiot. You know, I was deep in the trauma bond. There's, you know, reasons for it. But until I actually went through this work, and you helped me, you did it with me, you know, until I got through this work, I wasn't okay to move forward and I couldn't be in a relationship with you if I hadn't done this work. You need to get to the point. And so, yeah, like I accepted it. I accepted that I have a role to play in this. I mean, is that kind of the same with you?
Yeah, honey. And you mentioned like your dad being a narcissist. And it's funny because this is kind of, in a way, we both like connected the two. We had these values. They're good values. You wanted to have children and raise a family. That's a good value. That's awesome. Me, I didn't want my kids growing up like my brother and I, and coming from a broken family. But it was delusional thinking and just emotional thinking where there was no logic. I was married to somebody that didn't share those values, and I hung on to those ideals, and they almost killed me. Now, I had to look at that. And then also, Sharon, for me, and you mentioned this in 2016, like when you had your awakening, like I was codependent. They call it nowadays, I guess the proper term is self-love deficient. But there was a hole inside of me. And I learned at the beginning, all the way back when I was a little kid, and the trauma that I went through, like most people, not just narcissists, that, when you're told that you were the reason why your father left, and I wish you were never born, and you start escaping through drugs and alcohol, and the surgeries that I had when I was a little kid, at birth, I had 13 major operations, the loss of control. I spent most of my childhood in the hospital. I was trying to find my self-worth in other people. Now, doesn't a narcissist do that? I had to look at like a narcissistic trait I had. And we all have them, not to the degree of a disorder, but I put my self-worth in other people. Please, like friends, even people pleasing. Please like me. And my wife at the time, how she treated me is how I thought about myself. That's codependency. I didn't have any self-worth about myself or value. I didn't believe in myself enough to say, I can step out of this and do something with myself. I don't need her. I believed the con that I needed her. In reality, through this process of soul searching and inventorying and the shadow work, I come to realize that the narcissists saw in us what we couldn't see in ourselves. They knew we were the prize. They knew, I believe unconsciously and sometimes consciously, they see in us what they know they could never have. Now, I don't know if it's like, yeah, it's love that I see, but they know that we have something they could never, ever have. The envy and the jealousy that they have towards us is black, is the blackness of God. It's just so dark and evil. But I had to fill that God-shaped hole. And for me, it had to do with spirituality. Talk to me a little bit, Sharon. Like for you, were you able to see like, wow, man, like, why did I put my worth in this other idiot? And like, wow, I was codependent because you knew that in 2016. Were you starting to see like that you needed to be healed and the possibility that maybe our experience with the narcissist was meant to be?
Absolutely. You know what? That's actually probably a good point for us to stop right now. We can start part 2 with that. Does that sound all right?
Oh yeah, that's awesome. We'll throw in all kinds of stuff. Karma, we can talk about that, and it'll be great.
Yeah. All right. So let's do that. So just because this is getting a little bit long, but we'll have a part 2 next Monday. So if any of you have any questions or anything you think we should discuss, please put it in the comments. We'd love to like get you guys involved. That would be fantastic. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Joe, for coming. And if all goes well, I will see you on Wednesday's video. I hope everybody has a great week. And Joe and I together will see you next Monday. God bless.
Yeah, bye, guys.